everyone, so great to be here and welcome to your lesson on building resilience. Let's dive straight in because I'm really excited to share today's content with you. So here's a roadmap for what we're going to cover in today's lesson. We're going to talk about what is resilience. We'll talk about resilience and the impact it has on culture and why it's important for culture. I'm going to give you some of my top tips for building resilience, and of course, I'll leave you with a tool for personal planning. Just a spot of housekeeping before we dive in. You'll see below in the resources section, there's a couple of tools that go with this lesson. So if you haven't had a chance to do the resilience checklist now, you might like to, or yet I should say, you might like to take a moment now just to print that off. It's just a really quick tick and flick that lets you have a look at how resilient am I right now. So it's a way that you can benchmark your current resilience. And then, of course, the homework or the activity that goes with today's lesson is the other tool that you see down there, the personal planner for resilience, and we'll guide you through that at the end of this lesson. Okay, so let's jump in. A couple of quick tips as always. You've made the time to be here, and this lesson will only go for the next 10 to 15 minutes, but I invite you to really focus. Shut down whatever other browsers you have open at the moment. Turn your mobile phone over, or even better, switch it off. And try to be really present and really lean in to the concepts that I talk about over the next little while. And of course, it's far less about what I talk about than what you do after this lesson and with the tools that are provided to you in this lesson. Because insight is great, but insight alone produces no outcome. So we really need to take action to get outcomes. Okay, let's get into it. Resilience, what is it? Well, I'm sure that you've all heard it a million times. It's a much used term, especially in corporate environments these days. It's actually originally an engineering term. It's about the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, a toughness. So that ability to bounce back, which is often the connotation we have for resilience. Now, more important than the dictionary definition of resilience is, what does it actually mean to you? And so I just want to take a moment to share, in my many years of teaching resilience to all sorts of organizations, what I have come to see resilience as, for myself personally and professionally, is really, it's like the water that can get us through a journey across a desert. It's not going to stop difficult things from happening. It's not going to stop us from facing adversity or challenge, but it does provide that much needed and thirst quenching relief from the challenges that we are all likely to endure. And I just want to share that up front because I think in organizations particularly, but also personally, resilience is one of the most valuable toolkits that we can develop to help us with the challenges that we will invariably face as we grow. Okay, in terms of building resilience, how do we do it? Well, resilience is a whole field of psychological theory, and it's built across 4 specific pillars. I like to call them pillars of fitness because I think of resilience as a kind of a holistic model for fitness across these 4 areas that you see in front of you now on the screen. And when we can synergize our effort to really balance things across these 4 areas, we have a much better shot psychologically at experiencing fulfillment and ultimately happiness. So it's about these 4 different areas: the physical, the social, the emotional, and the cognitive. And I want to take some time to look into each of those with you today. But just before we do that, I wanted to touch briefly on why is resilience important? Because I know that so many of us have done resilience courses, we've been through resilience training, and we're still not really sure, other than that ability to get on with business as usual, despite what might be happening, we're still not really sure what the actual value of resilience is. For me, in organizations, it's very basic. Healthy people make for a healthy culture. And the reason that we want to have a strong and resilient and healthy culture is because we start to see these sorts of outcomes. Where we have a high level of physical resilience in organizations, we see happy, healthy people, a workforce who is present. They show up. They're connected to each other socially. That's the next pillar. They're engaged. They're at the source of solutions rather than getting caught in problems and challenges. Emotionally, the organization makes space for, provides mechanisms for the opportunity for individuals to reflect and grow. And also at the team level, we make space for that to happen. And cognitively, we see teams, we see individuals and teams and organizations who are developing insight out of their experiences. And these insights are leading to organizational outcomes. So that's kind of the snapshot of what a resilient team might look like. And one of the reasons why it's valuable to do this is because it's really a win-win scenario. When we have resilient culture, we see benefits at the individual level as well as the organizational level. Individuals will talk about being healthier, experiencing better mental health, being able to cope better with their stress, experiencing enhanced relationships, feeling like the team dynamic or vibe is better. And often we measure that through engagement. But we'll also hear that people feel competent and confident and that they can communicate better. And of course, organizations also have some tangible benefits that they can measure. And you can see some of those on the screen in front of you now, and I'm sure there are many, many more. But when we benchmark resilience with organizations, these are the sorts of things that we talk to them about and look to measure. Some of the common barriers, just before we talk about how you can build resilience across each of those areas, I just wanted to share with you, I guess, the kind of pitfall that sometimes gets in the way. So change and stress are like the punch and judy of organizational dynamics these days. Wherever we see one, we know that the other is not far away. And that interrelationship between change and stress creates a depletion in our personal resilience. Just think about that for a moment for yourself. Whenever you're exposed to prolonged change or you have heightened stress levels, you tend to eat differently, communicate differently, connect with people in a different way, and maybe you don't plan quite as well as you might at other times. And this is quite the pitfall for organizational culture, because once we see the interplay of these three things, we start to see the escalation of conflict. And that's really the reason why we want to help organizations to build resilience. Okay, so if you haven't had a chance yet to have a look at the resilience checklist, it's down below for you in the resources section. You might like to just pause this recording and go ahead and print that out now and just take the checklist for yourself. It's meant to be a very quick tick and flick that gives you a moment in time snapshot look at how resilient am I right now. So if you've already done it, great, grab it next to you. If you haven't done it, go ahead and pause now and do that. So noticing which of those areas you found that you lacked in, and if you didn't realize, you'll see that each one of those blue areas connect with one of the 4 pillars of resilience. So we've got the physical, the social, the emotional, and the cognitive. So now let's take a look. Whichever of those areas was the most difficult or challenging for you, let's now take a look at what each of those means. When we talk about physical resilience, we are specifically talking about 3 things: eating well, sleeping well, and getting some exercise. Now, we're not dietitians, although we have provided some additional resources with this course for you to help you think about what tweaks you could make to your diet and how you might sleep more effectively. We know that these things are super important, particularly sleep. When we don't sleep well, we don't function well. We don't cognitively process, we lose the ability to regulate and manage our emotions, we respond and react differently to what we do when we have had good quality sleep. And this links to our diet as well. We all have different preferences around food, and I'm not going to talk to you today about what you should eat or any of the World Health recommendations, the World Health Organization recommendations for how much you should exercise, how many nutrients you should get. Certainly, we can give you some information on that if you'd like it, and you'll see some tip sheets as part of this program that can help you understand the value of those different things. However, we're really just saying, be aware that food impacts mood. What you put in your mouth impacts what you do with your body and how your brain functions. And when we talk about exercise, we know that just 20 minutes a day of exercise has the ability to significantly decrease the escalation of mental health issues. So very important that you eat well, that you sleep well, and that you move your body on a regular basis. They really, we've all heard about these things a million times before. We know that these are important things, but most of us don't do it or don't do it as often as we need to. So just start to think about, where are you falling short in the basics? Because these are really the things that set you up. These are the building blocks for success. And when we talk about the emotional pillar, we're talking about two skills here. The first of which is emotional regulation. Now, emotional regulation is all about our ability to recognize our emotions, to be able to train ourselves to understand what is the thought driving the emotion, and to be able to manage our response inside of our own emotional experience. Which leads us to the second skill, emotional intelligence. And this is about a couple of things. Firstly, it's about our ability to recognize what's going on for us, how we feel, what we're thinking that drives that feeling. Because of course, we always experience emotion first, since all experience travels up the spine as electromagnetic current. This is the theory of neuroscience. First part of the brain that deals with our experience is that emotion center. So we know that our experience is initiated with emotional response. However, research shows us that the brain fires from thought before emotion. So even though the first thing we experience is emotion or emotional reaction, there's always thought preceding emotion. And so we want to start to recognize what are the thoughts that are driving or that are creating our emotions and driving our experience. Emotional intelligence is all about self-awareness. Firstly, understanding ourselves, and secondly, understanding other people. And it has these two different kind of pillars, I guess. The first is self-awareness, which is all about understanding how we react and respond, understanding what triggers us, understanding where our emotions come from and what they mean for us, and how we need to manage them to get better outcomes in our relationships and in our experiences. But secondly, it's about social awareness. So if the first part is about self-awareness and mastery, the second part is about social awareness and relationship management. And this is about two things. One is doing the work to really listen to what people are saying to you, both what they've said and what sits behind their words, what's in the unsaid. This is what social awareness is all about. But also importantly, understanding the impact that you have on other people. And that is to say, understanding what it's like for other people to be around you, and then asking yourselves, what is it that I need to change or tweak to get a better result here? More on building emotional intelligence in the lesson on emotional intelligence at work. But my top tips for building emotional resilience are to develop insight. Ask yourselves these 4 questions, which are based on the model for building emotional intelligence. What am I doing? What is it getting me? What do I really want? What can I change? And I invite you to spend 5 minutes now pausing this video and answering these questions. In any area of life, personal or professional, that's not working for you, ask yourself, what am I doing? What is it getting me now? What do I really want in this area? And what can I change or tweak? Go ahead and do that exercise right now. Okay, we're back. Let's talk about social resilience. Social resilience is really important because the key tool for managing relationships is communication. Humans are interactive. We want to connect with other humans. We want to be heard. We want to be seen. And the way that we do that is through the skill of communication, social interactivity. Communicating for outcomes is all about appreciating diversity, getting clear on what is my intention in this communication and what is the best way that I can deliver the communication to get the outcome that I want. And when I talk about appreciating diversity, I mean recognizing that people react and respond in very different ways. Here's a simple example that helps us to understand that. I'd like you to count the number of letter F's in the sentence you see before you. Go ahead and do that now. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Write down the number you got on a scrap piece of paper next to you. Whatever number you got, I just want to share with you that the answer is 7. Now there they are. Maybe 8 if you counted the F that's in the heading on that slide. Now, when we do this exercise in groups, we'll get a range anywhere from 1 or 2 Fs right through to 7 Fs. And usually it's at the lower end of the spectrum. And this is just a reminder that we all interpret information differently. This is a very simple example that makes no real difference. No one's going to be impacted by getting the correct or incorrect answer here. And yet you will all have a variety of responses. And that's what's going on when we communicate all the time. So we have to be very careful that we're not assuming that just because we think we delivered a certain kind of message, that that's what people received. And that's what it means to communicate for outcomes, to get very clear on your intention, to think about who you're communicating with and how best to communicate to help them really hear. And cognitive resilience is about tying all of this together. It's about getting on with the job of planning the work and then working the plan. Understanding where you might need to make some personal changes to your physical resilience, understanding how you might need to regulate or manage your emotions more effectively, understanding and building those skills of self-awareness and emotional intelligence, connecting with people, communicating, appreciating the vast array of ways that people interpret and process their communication, and then asking ourselves, what do I actually need to do to get from where I am now to where I want to be? It's all about self-management. If we can start to notice our thoughts, which trigger our emotions, we have more control over our experience, and we can, in fact, start to link the two of those to direct our experience. Happiness is ultimately about two different things. All of the research tells us that human beings are happy through two different aspects of themselves. The first one, as you see on the left there, is what we call the experiential self. That's a part of us that's traveling through life, having a great time. We think we're doing well. We feel like a pretty good person. We think we clean up after ourselves when we make a mistake. We try to learn and grow and do good in the world. And then there's that other part of ourselves. The picture you see on the right there, we refer to it as the reflective self. The reflective self looks back in those milestone moments, maybe a change of job, or as we move into retirement, death of a loved one, end of a relationship, when we need to performance manage someone, when we get some feedback we don't like about our own leadership skills. This is the moment when we reflect and ask ourselves, am I satisfied? Did I do all that I could? Was I really connected to my goals and present to purpose? If we want to narrow the gap between the experiential self and the reflective self, it is imperative that we both pay attention during the little moments as we move through our day, our week, our month, our years, and that we take the time to reflect on our purpose, to get connected to our goals and review whether they still matter to us. Ultimately, this is how we can manage our own level of happiness. Okay, so I'm sure you're starting to notice for yourself some things that you know that you maybe need to stop doing that aren't helping you to build resilience across those 4 specific dimensions: the physical, the emotional, the social, and the cognitive. And I want to invite you to think about those actions and to start planning for them, because it is, of course, action which changes things. It's not insight. It's not the light bulb reminder. It's when we actually schedule and take action. So you can go ahead and use the tool that's included with this lesson for you, the personal planner for resilience. And you can look at each of those areas as you'll see them up the top there: physical, social, emotional, and cognitive. And ask yourself under each area, what do I need to stop doing that's not helping me build resilience in this area? What do I need to start doing that might be helpful? Maybe you want to meditate or apply some of the healthy sleeping tips, and you'll find the tip sheets that go along with this lesson here in the resources section too. What do I need to continue doing? So maybe there's something that you're already doing or you used to do. You want to keep doing that, do more of it, build on it. And start to notice, what are the thinking patterns that you need to manage more effectively to build your own personal resilience? Remember that building better culture is about us individually reflecting and growing, and about actively participating in the organization. Now, professionally, organizations can only provide the approach and enable you to build resilience, but it's a choice that we have to make ourselves. And you are invited here and now to make that decision for yourself to engage with building resilience. I promise you, you won't look back. Here are my details. Please feel free to reach out if there's anything more you need. Otherwise, thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you in our next lesson. Have a great day.